I've been living with my girlfriend for about 5 years. When the pandemic hit, I lost my place. At the time, we'd only been dating for a year. I asked if I could stay with her temporarily while I figured things out. She agreed, as long as I covered the rent, and she'd handle the other household expenses. It seemed fair, so I moved in and paid the full rent each month. Less than a year ago, I found out the place isn't rented at all, it actually belongs to her or her family. She never told me. They've never paid rent. I felt pretty hurt and betrayed. It wasn't just about the money, it was the lack of honesty. I brought it up, expecting at least a serious conversation or an apology. Instead, she basically said, "You agreed to pay, so what's the issue?" I told her I wasn't comfortable continuing to pay for something that doesn't cost her anything, especially when she doesn't work and gets money from her parents. I decided to start saving that money instead. She then said her parents only allowed me to live there because I was paying rent. I asked her to talk to them about changing that or at least give me time to save up and find my own place. She refused. She didn't even try to discuss it with them. After that, I started making jokes whenever she asked me to drive her somewhere. I'd say things like, "That'll be $5, or your Uber has arrived." They were just jokes, I wasn't actually charging her, but it was my way of poking fun at the situation. She didn't take it well. We had a big argument, and I told her that if she could charge me to live in her house, I could joke about charging her to use my car. Since then, things have been tense. She stopped talking to me, started cooking just for herself, and pretty much ignores me. A few weeks ago, she felt sick late at night and didn't tell me anything, she just called an Uber and left. I only found out afterward. I told her she should have said something, but she didn't seem to care. Now I'm sitting here wondering if I was out of line. I still feel like I was taken advantage of, but maybe the jokes were too much. Then again, if the roles were reversed, I would have never asked her to pay rent to live in a house that cost me nothing. So, comment 1. He has known about it for almost a year, hasn't moved out, hasn't saved in a whole year when his only big expense is rent, and taunts the GF for a whole year to manipulate her into not charging him rent. And after all that, he is shocked his GF did not wake him up for taking her to the hospital. Well, maybe the GF knew that she has to listen to your mockery when she is physically weak. Comment 2. You are a boyfriend, not a husband, that moved into your girlfriend's house on a temporary basis. Yet 4 years later you're still in her home that she owns with her family. Where can you live for free? You became comfortable in the 4 years you lived with her. A household has monthly expenses: electricity, water, Wi-Fi, insurance, property tax, to name a few. When do you plan on moving out? To get your own place and independence? After 4 years of living together, is marriage in the question? Or not? Story 2, speaking in French with my date's friend. I, 29M, have been going out with someone, 27, I met online for last couple of weeks. We are not dating and do not plan to in the short term at least, but we like each other's company and we hang out quite often. Last weekend, my date asked me if I wanted to hang out with some of his friends. I did not really mind, so we decided to do a half-a-day excursion out of the city together. I got along with all his friends, except for one girl. She came across as extremely pretentious as well as fake, and in general, I got really cold vibes from her. Throughout the day, there were at least a dozen times where I had to roll my eyes to what she was saying. I mentioned it to my date, and he seemed to agree but said she has always been like this, and although none of his friends really like hanging out with her, but they don't want to abandon her because they have known each other since their undergraduate days. Anyway, after we came back from the small road trip, we decided to get dinner before heading back to our places. While at dinner, we were talking about our favorite travel experiences and specifically food experiences within these cities. I mentioned my time in French countryside and how one of my favorite things was to grab a freshly baked croissant. This girl looks at me confusingly and asked me, "What is that?" I was genuinely confused at this point. If she did not know what a croissant was, but that seemed ridiculous. So I said, "A croissant like the French pastry?" To which she exclaimed, "Oh, accent." I was genuinely pissed at this and in response, I said in immaculate French, with an accent, of course. Oh, I did not know you spoke French. How exciting! I have been looking for someone to practice my French, and maybe we can do that together. What is your favorite French dish, by the way? There was absolute silence at the table, and she looked at me dumbfounded. I broke the silence by saying, "Oh, I thought you spoke French." I don't exactly remember what happened after, but somebody must have said something, and we moved on from that topic. Post the dinner, I received a text from my date, saying that I was being in a hole for that little performance of mine and it was not required, and she told him that she felt humiliated. Comment 1. NTA. She tried to call you out on your pronunciation and it blew up in her face. If she's embarrassed, maybe next time she'll bite her tongue. You did nothing wrong here. Comment 2. ESH. It sounds like you were already being rude to her by rolling your eyes when she spoke because you thought of her as pretentious and cold. Also, maybe she didn't understand your French accent. I'm a native French and English speaker, but I often have trouble processing what Americans are saying when they attempt to speak French with me due to the strong accent that makes words sound completely different. Story 3. Exposing my sister's fake cancer to our parents after she refused to come clean herself. I, 34F, just found out that my sister, 31F, who has been telling my whole family she has cancer for the last 8 months, has been lying. She shaved her head, said she was doing chemo, and had our parents move in to help her through treatment. I started to have doubt when, besides also staying out late relatively frequently, she would never let anyone attend appointments with her, and she clearly had way too much energy for someone going through aggressive chemotherapy. Last week, I ran into the office manager of my sister's oncologist at a coffee shop, small town. I casually mentioned my sister, and the office manager was confused. She had no idea who I was talking about. I did some digging through doctors and spoke to my sister about what I learned, and she broke down and spilled her guts. It turns out she fabricated the whole story because she was in over her head with debt and wasn't able to afford her apartment anymore. The cancer story got our parents to move in and she could then stop paying her bills. I was furious and told her that she had 24 hours to tell our parents the truth or I would. She asked me not to tell them because it would ruin her relationship with them. She did not tell them, so yesterday I took everything to our parents. Our parents are heartbroken. My sister is acting like I had no right to out her, and she didn't even say this to our parents. She was going to stage a miraculous recovery next month. She said I ruined her life, and that family should be trying to defend each other rather than expose each other. Comment 1. NTA for telling them. But you were a tiny bit of an R for not demanding that she tell your parents immediately, like within 15 minutes of finding out. 24 hours is too long to be deceived into thinking your child is dying. Comment 2. NTA whatsoever. Unfortunately, my cousin pulled the same stunt. My family is still dealing with his stupidity a few years later, and it's exhausting. Secondhand, my beloved albeit gullible grandparents refuse to cut him off. My advice is talk with your parents about getting her some sort of help and go very limited contact with her, no contact if she refuses. Also, don't be surprised if she pulls a similar stunt again. From what I've experienced, people who do this are chronic liars who are addicted to the attention and have a permanent victim complex. Story 4. Refusing to give a reward after 2 kids returned my opened mail with money inside. I'm 27F, but I am pretty petite and could easily pass for like a high schooler. So I am home alone at my parents' place dog sitting, and I get back from walking the dog, and as soon as I close the door and lock it, I hear the Ring Count doorbell go off and knocking, and I can see through their Alexa that it's 2 kids. Probably middle school aged. They have a bike and scooter. I did not see them when I came back from the walk, so I don't know where they were waiting or where they even came from. They are just standing there, and so I'm thinking that they are trying to sell something or another, so I plan to just ignore them and focus on getting the dog resettled. Except now the dog is barking like crazy because she senses someone by the door, and I can hear the kids say, "I just saw her go inside." They then say, "We found something of yours and it has money inside." So they are knocking like crazy and even start kicking the door. I figure that I'll just speak to them through the Ring bell, so I say, without opening the door, "Hi. Just leave it in the mailbox." I cannot open the door right now because my dog is not friendly. Which is true, but also I have no idea if this is a scheme or if there's an adult in a car waiting for them, etc. My mind is going into all sorts of scenarios that could end horribly for me. After them standing there for 5 minutes, I can see through the cam that they put it in the mailbox and walk slowly away on their bike/scooter. About 2 minutes later, one of the kids comes back and puts his hood on. Rings the doorbell and I can see him put his hood on, and I say, "What's up?" through the Ring cam. And he says my friend wants a reward. And I say, "Thank you for bringing back the mail, but there is no reward, please leave." And the kid just stands there demanding a reward. So I say, "I have your faces, if you try to threaten me, I will call the cops." The kid then says, "Call the cops, I don't care. I returned your money. If I ever find something for your house again, I'm not returning it." He then walks away before giving me the finger. I'm not looking to get these kids into any sort of trouble or anything, because I think they were just being dumb fucks and they couldn't have been older than 14, 15, but am I the a-hole for not giving a reward? What they returned ended up being an opened envelope, don't know how they got it, if it was already ripped, or if they opened it, from my aunt that had a $20 bill in it. My aunt is old school like that. I've had my fair share of finding misplaced items/wallets, and I've never once demanded or even expected a reward. My friend wanted me to post their faces on the Nextdoor app and blast them, but I don't know. So, comment 1. You don't get a reward for doing something that is illegal. Chances are they saw there was money in it. I'd report them to their parents and let them know I didn't like their attitude or tone, and perhaps they should let them know opening mail is illegal. I'd also make certain there was only $20 in there. Maybe she sent you $30 and they were looking to double their take. Comment 2. Naive much? It's not preposterous for a young woman to be apprehensive about opening a door. Her thought process was completely justified in today's culture.